Hello, everyone. My name is Xavier Lishinsky. I'm the CEO of Elements.cloud. And in today's session, I want to show you what we've been working on for the past, well, I want to say couple of months, but in reality, it's been years of development effort. Today, we're going to discuss how you will be able to understand the impact of change to your org by chatting with your org. Now, the reality is that when we plan any changes to our Salesforce org, when we want to create, modify, delete anything, nobody really knows the full story. Architects know part of the story, admins know part of the story, developers know part of the story, but hardly anyone knows the full picture. Today, I want to show you our new agentic tooling, which is not another chat interface over metadata files. It's not just list me all the references and dependencies tool. It's not a simple explain this Flow or Apex class in natural language feature. And finally, it is not just a flashy interface over your metadata files. Instead, what I plan to show you is a full reasoning decision engine around your Salesforce org configuration. Let's talk about the tooling problem in our space. We have plenty of tools to find where something is used, and Elements has been instrumental in bringing a lot of these to market. But nothing really tells us how anything works or what will break. We have plenty of where used buttons, which just list all the metadata where something is referenced. Useful, for sure, but really doesn't tell us much about an impact. We have dependency trees. A lot of tools these days do dependency trees. But again, it's just a where used button on steroids. It tells you where all the various hard-coded and programmatic references to metadata are, how metadata are referenced and related to each other, but you still have to conduct quite a lot of manual investigation into what will break and how things will be impacted when you introduce a particular change. And now we also have a lot of coding agents and AI tools that can very easily either explain individual components to us or can even list for us in a very accessible way how things are referenced. But in either case, these tools don't really tell us or help us understand how our org works end to end or what will break without doing a fair amount of manual investigation. So today what I'm going to show you is our new conversational org intelligence engine, something that we believe will save you hundreds of manual laborious Salesforce analysis and complete that work for you in mere minutes. All right, let's just get straight to it. So what you're seeing on my screen is new agentic interface for Elements, which we will be unleashing. And let me start maybe with an example or a use case that we all can probably relate to, something fairly simple, which is I want to delete something in my org. Let's say I want to delete a field. Now, let's say, and this is the first point, our orgs are very complex, plenty of objects, plenty of fields, a lot of duplicates. Right now, with especially agentic coding tools, you need to know exactly what you want to change. You need to be very precise about the type of change you want to introduce to your org. I'm going to actually start with something much more simplistic. I just want to delete the priority field on a case object. What Elements then does is prepares a plan on how to handle this particular request from the user. And we can see that there will be 5 steps involved in this plan, which is to identify the target metadata, scan the dependencies, assess impact of change, highlight any architectural risk analysis, and then create tickets, epics, and stories for me to do. We've designed our decision engine, our conversational org intelligence, very specifically around trust. So whilst we are conducting automatically and autonomously a lot of deep analysis of your org using almost a decade of dependency mining to traverse the relationships and understand the relationships and how things will impact. We also want to make sure that the user at any given point can double check the results and confirm that what the agent is doing, what Elements is analyzing, is indeed what they actually wish. So as you notice, I've actually asked a very generic question, very unspecific actually. I want to delete some priority field on a case. Well, the agent came back and said, well, hold on there, fella. There are 4 fields on the object that kind of a priority. And here are what they are. Here's how populated they are. Some description, help text to give us further context. Which one specifically would you like to get rid of? And one of the key things you will see in Elements capabilities going forward is rather than relying on users to provide extremely specific prompts and know exactly which of the hundreds of thousands of metadata they want to change, the agent will help narrow down from the list of possible suspects the one you actually want to deal with. So in my case, I'm going to say, well, actually, thank you for specifying. I want customer priority underscore C, a formula field that fundamentally for some reason never really populates. Now that I've specified exactly which metadata type I would like to delete, the agent will go through the rest of the plan, right? We'll scan the dependencies, we'll analyze impact of change, architectural risk assessment, and finally provide me with tickets for me to assess on the work. So here's an example. That particular field would normally be used in all of these different dependencies. But just because something is used somewhere doesn't mean it's actually going to be impacted. Fields are a great example of that. When a field, for instance, is used in a report, and sometimes fields are used in hundreds of reports, that stops people from making changes, right? Because they go, oh, there are hundreds maybe of reports that I need to now do something with. We actually go through every single metadata that's listed as referencing the thing I'm going to change or delete in this case, and assess whether there will be any significant impact. In this case, it has said, well, actually, no reports are going to be impacted or the list views, because the field is actually not used in any of the filters and groupings. It's just a column. So actually, that's fine. But there's specifically 2 flows in Lightning page where this particular field is used in some sort of logic. Well, that's great. And you would think, well, we're done. That's the thing we need to update. If we're going to delete the field, off we go. But actually, we're going to go a step further and assess the architectural risk of in this case, the flows that, well, not just flows, Lightning page as well, but in this case, only flows came back of what changes you could do while you're making those changes. And here's an important philosophical approach we've taken to cleaning up technical debt. There are plenty of tools out there, and Elements has been one of them, that give you various dashboards and reports on where the technical debt is in your org. The reality is, a lot of the time, business doesn't really care, right? As long as the technical debt is in some part of the org that we're not really using right now, or maybe it's not business critical right now, or whatever, right? We know it's there, but we're gonna leave it be for now until we have more time and focus to deal with it. And let's be honest, most of the time, there is no time to deal with it. So instead, what we've decided to do with Elements is, in context of the changes that the business is requesting, the changes that you're implementing to your org, if you're going to be touching any automations or, for that matter, objects or layouts which might be overly complex, we will highlight, whilst you're there, there's some, let's call it tech debt remediation or some improvements you could do to just make your org healthier. In this case, the agent has identified that for these particular 2 flows, there are some additional changes to be made aside of just updating the logic to account for the field being deleted. And at the end, what the agent does, it produces an epic and draft stories for me to review, which explain what needs to be changed in granular detail. And if I like those recommendations, I'm in control and I can choose to create tickets, stories in my backlog, which then could go into your Jira, Azure DevOps, Salesforce, Elements, or whatever tool you use to plan your work, to then sit in the backlog, fully scope, analyzed, and ready for implementation. So with that in mind, let me explain how is Elements unique and how what you saw, what we're working on, is different from the tooling and capabilities that you see in the market today. When it comes to the current AI landscape for tools that, agentic tools, AI tools that offer to help you understand your metadata and understand the dependencies and your configuration, a lot of them, and especially if you think about your coding agents, your Claude Code, your Cursor, and the others, a lot of them fundamentally rely on a prompt plus search plus grounding kind of approach. Think of it this way. You start in your kind of AI tool, could be Codex, could be ChatGPT, could be on top of Agentforce, Claude, various other more commercial tools out there. And you start by specifying, I want to do something to my org. And if that tool has access to your underlying org configuration, for instance, if you've used source control and you have downloaded your metadata into a GitHub repository, for instance, it will then try to find the metadata you've described, fetch and pull the specific XML or code file for grounding. So provide the AI tool with specific metadata you're interested in, and then perform some analysis or fundamentally work on it. And it sounds very, very useful. I've used it myself. These tools are generally groundbreaking. However, there are a couple of problems. The coding agents and in general other tools that try to bring that level of capability to non-developer users assume that the user knows how to frame the question, which metadata to pull, and which parts of the org are relevant, right? Which means that if you're an architect or a very senior developer and you really know your org end to end, you know what questions to ask, you know which metadata are relevant, you can guide the coding agents to look at the exact files you need and the exact context that's required, and you are able to judge whether the answer that it gives you is actually correct or not. And that actually creates a bit of a bottleneck, because it means people who are already super users in terms of your org administration and configuration become even better, even stronger, even faster. But it's not necessarily sort of capability which you would trust to put in the hands of your more junior team members or non-developers, right? And that creates a sort of friction. What Elements brings to the table, which is genuinely unique, is that because we have spent the last decade mining to a granular detail the dependencies between your Salesforce metadata to the point that we have a good semantic understanding of not just if a field is used in a flow, but which automations write or read or are triggered and what context and what order. We have that rich org configuration context graph that we can provide for AI analysis. So in the same vein, when you start a question, rather than your, let's call it coding agent or AI trying to pull the files itself and reason, we have our own decision engine, which is an agentic decision engine, where we look at configuration context in our graph database. We pull the right metadata, the right relationships, and the right metadata files. Sometimes it will require looking at full metadata files, but sometimes it will just require looking at fundamentally the repository of dependency, usage, and access information we have already denormalized in Elements database, and then provide your AI, or in this case our AI, that full relevant or configuration context to make sure that the answer that it gives and the reasoning that it performs accounts for full context of your org. As it says, we pull the entire context and streamline the analysis so that AI can reason over just enough context it needs to solve a particular problem. So what this means to you. For admins, no more guessing what breaks, ability to make changes faster with confidence, ability to understand and the cost of change before it even becomes a ticket, before it even gets to whoever needs to implement it, allows for a lot of what if scenario planning. For consultants, obviously, ability to scope the work almost instantly and deliver faster results with proof. And for anyone in Salesforce leadership role, your platform owners, CIOs, etc., ability to reduce risk, stop wasted effort, and accelerate both the transformation and technical debt cleanup, and fundamentally improving your org's health posture at the same time as you're implementing whatever business critical changes that you need. So in that context, let's talk a bit about the roadmap for this capability for our org decision engine. Right now, our focus is on automatic impact assessment, ability to assess, and this is what's coming live in a matter of weeks, ability to assess impact of planned changes, creates, updates, deletes on any metadata, as I showed you there. Then taking it a step further, ability to assess impact on planned tickets, right? I have this story, or I have this epic, help me understand what the impact will be if I implement that scope, and then ability to perform that analysis at scale. So let's say, let me throw 10 stories, 20 stories, my backlog, right? Add it and understand what will be the impact and associated cost of making all those changes. The next phase for us will be then intelligent fixing, giving you ability to review any recent changes in your org and identify root cause of any issues on any errors you encounter, as well as the ability to find this and explain errors that you or your users experience in the org today, taking into account the end-to-end automation chains, process configuration, and other things. And what we will be working towards, what is really our end vision, is to perform much larger, really long-running jobs, ability to reverse engineer business process from configuration, capability which Elements offers today, but it requires manual interpretation and analysis. This is something we want our agent to be able to handle as well. In context of any key business workflows you want to analyze, we will be automatically checking tech debt, data model, business process, and usage across those key workflows and giving you an end-to-end full picture of issues. And on the back of that, also recommending optimization and agentification opportunities. This is really what Elements is all about this year, and how we plan to transform ourselves from, in many ways, a classical software as a service business to a modern agentic interface for org intelligence. And forgot to mention, these are capabilities or use cases we want to support. Obviously, subject to market feedback, we might do more. But we also going to soon release our MCP server, which will allow this decision engine to be integrated into your Cloud Code, your Cursor, your Slack even, right? So how whatever AI tool or AI interface might be one for you, or the one of choice for you or your team, to be able to provide the same intelligence in that context as well. And if you'd like to be notified and keep tabs on when this goes live and when you have a chance to play with this capability yourself, scan the QR code on the right. Right, so a couple of questions I see from the users. After the agent develops a plan, is there a way to review, modify the plan through the dialogue? Kinda. So for those of you who are more technical and might be familiar with modern agentic architecture, obviously you've got your reasoning agent or your orchestrator, and then you have what in, let's say, Anthropic world is known as a skill, right? So predetermined agentic workflows that execute specific tasks and have certain capabilities involved with them. So depending on what type of question or issue you will ask, and by the way, we will be providing a template library for any supported questions or use cases, so there's no confusion about what the tool can or cannot do. There will be a sort of a template of which skills it plans to run. And you will be able, not conversationally, but through this right panel is intended to be both a display of information for you to review and make sure that, you check the homework fundamentally, you make sure that the agent does the right thing. But it will also be a sort of a semi interactive interface. So you'll be able, Warren, to unselect or choose kind of which skills you want to run in a particular case. So for instance, if you don't want to create any tickets, you just want to run some hypotheticals, you'll be absolutely able to do that. Benjamin. Benjamin is wondering what the underlying model is, and do we have a proprietary LLM or is the model agnostic? Great question, Benjamin. The model is actually agnostic. So whilst we, let's say by default, use our own, we have integration with OpenAI, and we have our own enterprise account there. There's ability to connect your own. For instance, Salesforce Professional Services decided for their, which is our kind of key customer and sponsor, they've connected their own model through the trust layer, so we can work with customers on a case-by-case basis to allow them to bring their own models. Because the way the decision engine works is we're not just throwing prompts at AI and taking AI take the wheel. Every skill is carefully curated, part deterministic, part AI workflow to scan and get particular information and get particular results. So because we're spending so much time and effort making sure that the pipeline, if you will, provides the right context, the model itself matters less. Some models will be better at reasoning, some will be faster, lower, but based on our testing, irrespective of which underlying model you use, you pretty much get the same consistent results. Yes, so Ayla, will the agent be capable of finding and describing dependencies and action steps built into Apex code as you demonstrate with flows? Yes, absolutely. I just picked that particular example because that's the one I played the most with recently. But yes, I mean, the whole idea is that Flow, Apex, Omni Studio shouldn't matter. The logic should always be the same. Rashmi asked, would you intend that this functionality supersedes process configuration mining or complements it? Process configuration mining, I kind of alluded to it in the roadmap slide. We have capability in Elements today, which, you select an object and long story short, we can reverse engineer your business process based on how your org is configured with automations, permissions, triggers, and everything else. And sometimes it is a messy picture because a lot of orgs are very messy and there's a ton of technical debt and over provisioning, and these diagrams can be quite big and quite complex, and people sometimes struggle to really understand where to start and how to make it better. Our plan is to complement process configuration mining. So the logic of mining your org, your automation chains, your triggers, everything for this very accurate end-to-end and permissions, end-to-end business process understanding, we're just going to keep adding to it and making it better as we have. But we're going to kind of allow our decision engine to run it for you. So think of it as starting the process conversationally and then using its own reasoning and workflows we will build to streamline that analysis and kind of, yes, you can do it yourself and feel free to do so. Here's the diagram, but here is kind of all the recommendations and analysis on the back of that. I'm also actually thinking that not sure that we will get there this year, but I can very much see us getting to the point where any diagrams you create in Elements will not be things you edit through click and drag and drop, but rather you will be able to then ask the decision engine to make certain changes or to use the diagram you've created manually and then run analysis on it as well. All right, Vidya asked a very good question. How will Elements how will this tool differentiate between if Elements is installed in the org itself as a managed package versus an Elements app? Well, very good question. But fundamentally, in order for this to work, you will have to connect and sync an org into the Elements application. The managed package that you can install into your org is necessary for us to run some advanced jobs like field population record, accounts record changes, and some other ones. So all it means that certain jobs, certain tasks the agent wants to perform will not be available unless it has access to that data from the managed package. But that's really all it comes down to. Well, listen, thank you all for asking very good questions, and I feels like there's genuine excitement in the room about what's coming. As a reminder, I'm just going to quickly pop it on the screen one more time. Make sure you keep tabs on the announcement when we actually go live. There'll be so much to do and so many use cases we want to support. But because we have spent nearly a decade mining metadata to a very granular level, I'm genuinely excited because it feels like now we're finally in a position where agentic technology allows us to leverage this richness of information and have unleashed the full potential of what Elements was always supposed to be.